Welcome back to the Cheer Athlete. Today we're going to talk about my some takeaways that I saw at a recent cheer competition that I went to, and some tips to help make some stunts stronger and more solid. So if you don't know me, I'm Laura Turner, I'm a physical therapist and a strength coach. I am a former cheerleader and strength and coach. I've coached both high school and college cheerleading, and I've finished coaching back in 2012. So it's been a while since I was coaching, but I focused my doctorate studies on cheerleading injuries and the movement screening to help reduce the risk of cheerleading injuries. And now I'm focused on helping build stronger cheerleaders and getting you comfortable and strong in the gym and building strength and progressing your stunts to help also reduce injuries. So this week I had the opportunity to go to a competition, a local competition here, and it was one that I don't usually go see the teams. I usually stay with the teams that were in my league when I was coaching, because it's closer. But I wanted to go see a different league, and it was awesome. Like it was just really fun to go and watch. Like because I don't go as often as I used to, when I get the chance to go, it's really cool to see how competitions have progressed and how um, we are the sport is progressing. When I was coaching, we weren't able to do any inverted skills at all, and now everything is inverted. Um, we were not able to do release skills. We had to you always had to be connected. We weren't doing any flipping baskets and dismounts at all. And now it's what I see. They're connected and held on, but at the high school level, but there's a lot of flipping and turning, and so it's great to see the progress and with that, so around in 2007 they made a rule that you couldn't do any basket tosses on the hardwood floor. You couldn't build the 2.5 high pyramids in college, and that was like a big bummer because that's what we were doing. But it made sense too because we wanted to keep things safe, right? So we started to get mats out and perform that way. I still think that's a great idea. It's not always feasible in the middle of a halftime, but I like that we've gone back to being able to do harder skills and still encouraging the safety, because I think that's a key component, is being able to challenge our athletes and letting them feel challenged, but also being safe enough to perform the activities cleanly so that the people in the stands are not cringing. So let's get on to my takeaways. Some of these are tips and some of these are just kudos. I'm going to start with some kudos. Like first thing I noticed, like the walkouts. Um, I really enjoyed watching each team walk out. You could tell some of them were like super focused at the start, as they're waiting to get called onto the mat. They're holding hands. They walk out solidly as a team. What I really like, because I'm old school cheerleader, is when they run out and they're like pumping up the crowd as they're coming out, and you can just feel the excitement of the team and the that they're just about to go and get after it. And that like always brings me chills. And I loved watching the teams that were doing that. And the game day team that did that was amazing. Like really a couple of standout girls were like, it's unusual at the high school level or below to see the crowd response activity, like the enthusiasm in their step and um, their facial contacts, their awareness with the crowd, and their contact. It just like that was, for me, that was very exciting because that's what I look for when I go to look at college cheerleaders and at a game. And so like they're developing that, and I could definitely see these kids, continuing on in college cheer, and I think that's awesome. Um, the I again I talked about the inversions. Like everybody's doing these inversions and the dismount inversions, and I think they're really fun to watch. I think the transitions into stunts were really cool. There was a lot of walkovers into stunts and transitions just on the floor with people doing walkovers or cartwheels. And you think, okay, that's not an advanced level skill, but to see that put together into a transition with a number of teammates doing it all at once, and the timing of that, it was really very visual and very solid and clean. And so I kudos to the teams that were able to do that. And if you're working on that with your teams, like don't underestimate the power of a forward roll out of a stunt or a cartwheel as a transition, because as a spectator, it's very visual. Now, are you going to get your points with that? No, not necessarily, but it can help on your visual points and your transitional points as opposed to your difficulty. So, they're not as energy demanding as a handspring. And so you might put that in as a quick little transition, because maybe you can get the whole team to do it, or maybe, wherever you can fit it in. I'm not a choreographer. I'm not here to critique choreography, and I'm not a stunt or a tumbling coach, but I can look at the as a spectator and seeing what is exciting on that end, and also what does it take energy wise, because that's where my focus is, on the energy and the strength and the conditioning. What does that take in the middle of the routine, and how do they look? There were some teams that like went full out. This is one tip I would have for coaches, like, and cheerleaders: don't go full out in your warm-ups. Yeah, you might have 10 minutes in between, but I saw some teams off to the side that were going through their warm-ups that were solid. Like, I thought for sure they were going to come out and hit. And when they came out, they looked like they were tired. You only have so much expenditure. Maybe you're not eating enough in between. You give it your all on the practice mat and then come out and like nerves get the best of you. That happens for sure. But, save that big energy. You want to run through, you want to practice and just kind of get things warmed up, but like save the full out for the mat, because there's only so much energy you have in a day. So on that note, make sure that you're eating something through your day, maybe not right before, but a half an hour before, so that you have that full energy to get out. And I'm talking energy, like not just cheer energy, like the enthusiasm, but energy that allows you to build the stunts, because if you're tired, things are going to come down. And if you're got that fueled energy and your muscles are strong and ready to go, then you're going to have a better chance of hitting. I saw a few times in a prep level, and kids that were trying to go to extended level, two-legged stunts, really the flyers got to pull their legs together, bases got to push the legs together. A lot of like really wide stance up in a prep level, and that makes it really hard if they're assisting the stunt, and trying to balance and hold that, or transition and do some moving in that stunt. Some things that can help that would be, so squats, deadlifts, lateral lunges, and working that side lunge to pull back together. I like adductor rocks for stretching the inner thighs, which is, on hands and knees and one leg out to the side. I've got videos on my YouTube channel, so check them out. But so that will help to stretch the adductors. But if you're rocking in and out, you're going to get a little eccentric length to it too, so to help strengthen at the same time. Of the seated adductor machines, I think they're pointless. It's better to be working on, narrow stance squatting. You're going to work all those muscles at the same time, and it's more effective, and that's actually going to carry over into what you're doing. So be sure that we want to have good form with our squats, change the variation of where your leg position is, but get used to balancing and finding where that center is, where your feet are stacked directly underneath your knees and your knees are directly underneath your hips. As you can learn to do that on the ground, it's going to carry over into the air. Another bobble area that I saw in a lot of single leg stunts is the knees were, I'm going to call collapsing, like flexing in the physical therapy terms. And usually, if I'm looking at that, if I'm seeing somebody stand on one leg in the clinic and they can't straighten their knee, it can be a couple of different things. either their calf muscles tight and that's blocking the full knee extension, their hamstrings are tight and that's blocking the full extension, their quads are weak and that's blocking full extension, or their hip extensors, their glutes are weak. Potentially even the hip flexors are tight. So all of those individually can create can cause the knee to flex, and then if you're up in the air, you add into that. But more so, it's a stability, and I think it's more stability at the ankle and the hip. If you don't have solid ankle stability where you are locked out, maybe slightly pointing down into a plantar flex with your toes up in a dorsiflex position, just slightly, not a lot. You don't want to toe, but just a little pressure there will create some tension in through the calf muscle and create a little bit more stability at the knee. Also, you want that the hip isn't stable enough to hold the knee from going in, and it's kind of letting the knee is driving in. That's because you need to strengthen the outer part of your hip, your glute medius, glute minimus, and your hip rotators. And we don't work these in isolation. You're going to work them with those squats, with the lunges. Single leg squat especially, and a single leg deadlift will help tremendously in improving the single leg stunting exercises. Again, check out the channel. There's a lot of you'll find single leg deadlifts, single leg squats all over the place. Interestingly enough, that night, Coach Kelvin Lamb of Cheer Moxie, find him on Instagram if you don't follow him already. He was doing a live video and was asking. So I asked, what are some stunting tips for this? And his response was that the flyer really needs to learn to kind of get up and settle and not try to balance herself, but just to get herself centered and settle as opposed to trying to work and stabilize. So, I think there's a lot of technique to it. I don't think it's just the flyer. I think the bases have to make sure they're under also. And he didn't see this stunt, so, he's just going off of my words of this. But spot on. Like the flyer has to adjust, but the bases have to adjust. And then there needs to be some good strength for the flyer, hip, ankle strength, and potentially some mobility, but this looked more of a stability thing. Didn't look like she had the flexibility. It was not a flexibility issue. And then the bases need to be strong enough that they are pulling up and under. They need to have good core strength. They can keep their ribs down and they can get up and under in a stunt and be able to hold it with their legs and their arms so that it's, they're controlling that a little bit more. So from a strength and conditioning standpoint, there's a lot of work that can be done to help that. From a technique standpoint, go follow Kelvin because he's got some amazing tips for that as well. Teams that come out and they showcase their strengths. Like not every team has full team tumbling in high school, but if you showcase what you have, whether handsprings, tucks, some teams didn't have any of that, but they really were creative in their use of walkovers, and they were very solid in their two-legged stunts and the transitions that they were able to have. There were some teams that only had like 6 kids out there, and they were putting up 2 one-mans and doing, they really built to what they were able to do. And I think that's a key point. Like we always try to do more and we want to keep up with the Joneses. But we have to work to what the full team level is. Sometimes there's going to be one cheerleader that's maybe has more experience, maybe is a little more talented, or is able to pull off more stunts than the rest of the team. But you've got to put that all together. Yes, showcase what she can do, but also blend that as a team. And because cheerleading is a team sport, and we have to pull everything together. And it can be frustrating for the cheerleader who wants to be doing more, but that's the whole point of the sport, is pulling that all together. So showcase your strengths, show off what you got, and put out what is solid so that you're not falling all over the place. And I saw some stunts come down. I didn't see any falls, and which is kudos, because that's the thing that we don't like to see, is when things, those pyramids just implode and things just come down. Another key takeaway, like I saw a lot of taping on both knees, and So kinesio tape, it's a great tool to kind of give some kinesthetic, which is feedback awareness, into whatever structure you're taping. When I see that on both sides, it tells me they've got both sides knee pain, probably like structurally, it's probably a patellofemoral dysfunction, likely because they need some hip strength. But when it's on both sides, that's when I'm going to go look at core. Can they hold the plank? Can they isolate their lumbar flexion extension, and create good stability there? So things like cat cows as a warm up, and then bird dogs where they have a ball on their back and not letting that fall off the back. Maybe even regressing beyond that and working on some rolling, or bringing the knees to chest and happy baby exercises, which will isolate the hip motion from the core motion. There's a whole lot of exercises that you can do, and it all varies as to each individual. But whenever something's going on both sides, if you're looking at your kids, it's likely not that joint that's the issue, but more likely it's the core. And so start doing some regressed exercises, like easier exercises, to help them get stronger so that they can then advance. Kids get frustrated all the time. Adults do too, when we regress in exercise and it feels too easy for them and they feel like they're struggling. But if you can do that and they can own it, they have perfect form, they are breathing with it, and they're not compensating elsewhere, then that builds that foundation. It takes away the bilateral knee pain, as well as reduces the risk of injury, and they're able to build and stunt better because they're stronger with their base. Like, we're not going to put somebody up on a lib if they can't do a thigh stand. Maybe nobody does thigh stands anymore, but if they can't do a prep, they're not going up to a lib. They need to have that base. They need to be able to hold it. They need to be able to control it. And that's the same thing with exercise. We all want to do these like fancy muscle ups or, and feet to bar core exercises. But if you can't hold a 90-90 position and breathe without arching your back or compensating with your neck, then there's no way that pull up is that muscle or that leg to bar is going to help you get stronger. Yeah, you might go through the motions, but you're missing a lot of reflexive stability. So as frustrating as it is, it's very important to regress an exercise and make it easier so that they can get better. And gradually, you go from a 90-90 to a dead bug, to a plank, to a V-up, to a legs or hanging leg exercise, hanging ab exercise where you're just hanging, and then hanging knee to chest and hanging feet to bar. It's progression over time. And the more you stay with it and the more you're consistent with it, the better that will get and the easier it will get. One of my biggest kudos to the teams this week was how much the varsity teams were looking out for the JV teams, or the older cheerleaders were looking out for the younger cheerleaders. And there was a girl that came off the mat and was not feeling well, and the varsity cheerleader took her by the hand and directed her and took her to where she needed to be and really helped her out. And that's what this is about: building camaraderie, taking care of one another, supporting each other in the struggles as well as in the successes, and being there to help each other out. Like, that's what we need in this world, and this is what we need in cheer as well. And it really, I hope the girl's okay. I think she's okay, but that was really special to watch that older cheerleader do that, because she just did it instinctively and there was no questions asked. And that, I think she's raised right and doing the right thing. Lastly, the other big thing, like the dads that were there that were critiquing the routines, I heard them on my way in, not critiquing in a bad way, but breaking things down, they need to be able to do this, and this, and look at you go, dads. And they had soccer jerseys on, or some other they were there to support their cheerleader, but they were not necessarily in the cheer world like a lot of guys are. But they were just dads. Just dads. That was amazing. Their boyfriends there wearing their girlfriends' um, sweatshirts and supporting each other. Like, it's coming, guys. There is support out there. Keep looking at that. Like, sometimes we get frustrated that the recognition isn't there and that nobody calls us a sport, and we get frustrated on that. But like, it's there. Our parents are seeing it. Our significant others are seeing it, and we're creating a wave that is making cheerleading known and um, just as recognized and supported as every other sport. So kudos to all of you. It was a great experience. I'm very excited that I got to go. I don't get to go to a lot of competitions these days because life, because I work and I have my parents and I have my own workouts that I've got to do. But it's exciting when I get to go and I get to see these and I see what's going on in the routines these days, and how much they're progressing and how much strength there still needs to happen. And I just enjoyed every minute of it. So I hope those were helpful. If you want to know any exercises, if you want to have your cheerleader looked at for movement screen to see what's missing, if they need hip and ankle strength versus hip mobility or ankle mobility. I do free injury screens or free movement screens, not necessarily because of an injury, to guide the exercises that will help make things stronger and give you some specific exercises. So feel free to reach out and just email me, Laura@MoveBetterLLC.com. I move better. Like my sea turtles, it's one step at a time and persistence over time. That's what the sea turtles mean on my logo. And I just got to keep at it. Feel free to check out all of our free guides on the website, and all those links are in the show notes. And I'm looking forward to starting some strength and conditioning programs through the summer to work on the conditioning and the strength, keep you moving forward in a way that's not cheerleading, but is going to get your body moving right. So if you're interested in those, please feel free to reach out also. And I will talk to you guys next week. Have a good week. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Have a great day.